Hey guys, welcome back to The Deep. I'm Rob Whiteside, and with me this week I have a very special guest from Party with Pete, News Tonight, and Park Center, my good friend Pete Carney. Pete, how you doing, buddy?
Yes, I'm finally on Deep in the Plus. I am very excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well, to answer your question. Yeah, it's a great day. This is very exciting. I've wanted to be on one of the shows, but the problem is I haven't seen any movies. So I made sure to carve out some time for today's movie, and I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I absolutely appreciate you being here. I know that on the network you're kind of known for not having seen a bunch of movies, so it was very interesting when you're like, "Yeah, I'll do it," because I was like, I just didn't think you were a movie guy. So I'm glad you did. We talked about it a little bit, and the movie we came up with was The Three Musketeers. And I think a lot of people think Disney, and they think the original Mickey Mouse Three Musketeers. But this is the Three Musketeers that took place in 1993. It has an amazing cast.
Amazing cast. That's my first note. So like I watched it and I had like a notebook out in front of me. So just to defend myself, it's not that I'm not a movie person. It's just that up until like the year 2000, like I wasn't allowed to see any movies. Like my parents were very strict. So like if a movie was like, I was allowed to watch like PG up until it was like PG-13. I had to be like 14 to watch. Couldn't watch rated R until I moved out of the house. So like it just didn't happen a lot. And I worked a full-time job while in high school. So like going to the movies and seeing movies that were just coming out wasn't really a thing. So I just never really saw movies. But now I am a huge movie guy. Like I have the AMC Movie Pass before this whole COVID-19 stuff. Like I was going to the movies at least 3 times a month. So I'm trying to make up for lost time. But I was super excited because I turned this movie on and my very first note is just, holy cow, this cast. As people's faces were keep popping up and then the names on the opening screen, I'm just like, what? Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt? I'm like, what? Am I watching Platoon? Like, what is this? This is crazy.
Yep, and they were big. I mean, this was a time when they were big names. I mean, like right now, I mean, you know, Kiefer Sutherland just did a TV show, and Oliver Platt's on TV, and Chris O'Donnell's on TV. So they've kind of moved away from movies. But at the time, like this was kind of like the height of their time. This was right after Sin of a Woman for Chris O'Donnell. This was you know, around the time of Flatliners that Oliver Platt and Kiefer Sutherland did together. So I mean, the fact that Disney had them in 1993 was, I think, a big get. And I would have thought that this would have been the biggest blockbuster that ever hit with this kind of cast, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm trying to put myself back to '93, and I was a little bit younger then. I was 9 years old when this came out. And I have a whole other note about my mom never would ever have allowed me to watch this, even though it was rated PG. I think this was a very kind PG because there's a good amount of violence, I would say, and there's some I would say light sexuality and undertones, which you know is fun to watch, and it was a great movie. But yeah, like this, I don't know. I wasn't sure going into it at all because I like going into movies like Lauren, my girlfriend, is the opposite. She likes to watch the trailer, read a summary, and I like to go in cold. I want to see it the way the director wants me to see it. I don't want to know people's relationships until the director sets them up for me. So I went in thinking this was going to be like a fun Disney time sword fighting movie. And then I'm looking at the cast, and then just the opening couple scenes, I'm like, and sequences, it was shot like a blockbuster. They were like shooting on like what looked like an amazing location with castles, a ton of extras in the backdrop. I was surprised out of the gate, and then I kept liking it. Lauren thought it got a little silly, but I actually loved this movie.
All right, so let's talk about something you just said about like the rating, that it was like, you know, I think that in today's world it probably would have gotten a little bit more of a PG-13, but early on in the movie they stayed away from blood. I mean, there was like the early fight, there was a lot of sword jabs and guys falling off of like buildings, but none of that showed like blood. But there was a lot of sensuality. You know, the Rebecca De Mornay character, and Tim Curry's giving her the up and down, and she pulls a knife on him in his crotch. You know, and so like I'm looking at going,
slow moving shot over the girl's shoulder. It's basically like you have nowhere to look, but you know, in the direction the camera wants you to. I still think there was a good amount of violence, and I mean, as an adult now, I love those sequences, and watching it happen and watching them unfold was super cool. But you're right. I think they steered away from gore. So this was to like be broken down into what category is what. Like there was no bloodshed per se. Like even when someone did get stabbed, there was a weird scene when Kiefer Sutherland's character, who was it, Athos, gets stabbed in the arm. and you just see like a little red dot like form around it, and that was it. They never cut back to it. He's back to riding horses and shooting guns. You're right. There's, now that I think about it, these same scenes could have been used in Game of Thrones. You just would have had a ton more blood and gore.
Yeah. At one point, I was thinking I'm getting very Princess Bride vibes from it. It had that kind of adventure tale to it. And then at some point, it felt sort of like Pirates of the Caribbean. Actually, they refer to Oliver Platt's character as the pirate at one point, and he does like dress that way. And like their costumes are very much reminiscent of the pirate. And they're in a tavern, and they have winches, and
Yeah.
There's
So even that scene, the scene on the ship where all of a sudden the three guys look at him and they go, "Is that the pirate?"
Yeah.
And they just jump off the boat on their own, and he turns to D'Artagnan and he's like, "Told you I was famous." Like that was hysterical.
And Oliver Platt was svelte in this. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm used to seeing Oliver Platt being a little bit larger, and this is probably his prime, I would think, as far as
They
like.
could have had, honestly, the four Musketeers of this movie could have all been on like the cover of GQ in '93.
In this movie, no one has a French accent. I mean, if they don't mention France every few minutes, you don't even know that it's supposed to take place in France. Now, Gabrielle Anwar is the queen, and her like handmaid does have sort of a French accent, and there may have been one or two other female characters, but for the most part, everyone has this mix of either a British, like a Tim Curry, or just straight up American accent, and it's like should that bother me or should that not bother me?
It's another great point that you bring up, and I love the way you phrase it, because Lauren literally, I had her sit with me and watch because she had never seen it either. She asked me, "Where is this movie set?" And I didn't have an answer until they said, "I have to go to Paris," or he said something along the lines of a location. I think it was Paris. I don't know, in the beginning of the movie or somewhere, but he said, "I have to get to whatever it was." I go, "Oh, that must be France." And then they reference France later on in the movie a lot more often. But you're right.
Right.
It just looked like old country Europe.
Yeah.
It was the setting. And then the names, like, you hear Porthos and Athos. To me, those sound very Greek. Those don't sound French to me. Those sound like Greek gods. So interesting there, too, with the names of characters, along with, obviously D'Artagnan sounds pretty French, but the rest.
It has an era that it's built around because of the king and what's happening at the time, but I really feel like it kind of still stands up, and it doesn't feel like it's an out of time period piece. So that was a very cool thing for me to see. But back to the acting thing, one thing that I thought was interesting is Oliver Platt had the best lines.
Like, if I was to play any character, I would want to be Oliver Platt's character. However, Kiefer Sutherland's character had a quote. Hold on, I wrote it down. And just funny for me, right. I like that. When he's, I guess it's like kind of halfway through the movie, and he's off drinking by himself, where he's being taught how to pick up a wench, and they're kissing the girls, and he's sitting by himself. So D'Artagnan goes over there, and Athos says, "You fight like a man. Let's see if you can drink like one too." And he goes, "I'll drink anything you put in front of me." And then he just kind of like smirks, and he says famous last words. I feel like that has been quoted amongst my friends for such, I don't know, and I never knew where
I want you to go find out. I want you to find out if they were quoting this movie, because I would be shocked if they were. When I brought this movie up and I said to my wife, "Hey, we're going to watch this movie," she was like, "Oh, I love that movie. I've almost forgotten about it." Because we saw it a while ago. We haven't seen it, I don't think, since probably since we were married. And so when we went back and looked at it, it was like, oh, hey, this is a really good movie, and just kind of a lot of fun to watch. So The other thing, Tim Curry does an excellent job, I think, in anything that he does. I mean, he was Pennywise in It, the TV series. He is, again, a great. He was in Clue, great voice actor. So the thing that was really interesting to me was how dark he was in this. The part where he breaks out the gun and just shoots Charlie Sheen, and I was just like, that's really dark. And then another thing that he kept using, but I think they used throughout the movie, is the catchphrase of the Three Musketeers, which was all for one and one for all.
Yeah.
So he would always kind of turn it around or say it ironically. And there was this one line where he says, "All for one and all for me." And I just thought, man, that is just so dark and twisted, and I kind of love it. And I think that Tim Curry was the perfect one to play the Cardinal in this.
Me too. I love the way he played a villain, and he also that scene was, and like you said, kind of like gave you chills when he shoots him, and you're like, wow, like you did not expect that. Same thing with kind of like the bathtub scene where the queen is sitting talking to her, I guess her handmaid, and like when she leaves, someone's gonna be there. But even knowing, I think, even knowing something was gonna happen, when they cut to him over her shoulder, putting the robe over her, it was like this eerie, it gives you chills kind of moment. Like he played this very like snake-like.
These are not new movies. I mean, this movie is 27 years old. So this would be a spoiler, I guess. But when they're fighting the cardinal at the very end, and the other guards step up, and they're holding back the three musketeers, and then all of a sudden all these other guys run up and they're just clutching these robes tightly around them, these brown plain robes, and then they all get into this line, and then on cue they all drop them and you see the blue. And I think probably when I saw it the first time I thought, oh wow, that is really wow, that was a cool moment. I look at it now and go, that's really very unrealistic that they would all just cover themselves up and wait for the big reveal to drop it and show their cloaks. Never mind the fact that there was this big ceremony where they all burned their cloaks in like the first couple minutes of the movie, but now they all have them again. That was kind of weird.
But then they show the scene where like they're pulling them out of hiding spots, and I guess these were like backup robes, as if they had two, like a Sunday set and the rest of the week. It's where like they were pulling them out of the old gunpowder barrels and underneath the ground, out of the old wooden boxes that were buried under the hay. So I mean, I get that. I thought the same thing, is that how would there be so many of them in this giant crowd all covered up? And it wasn't just blue, like there was like bright silvers and golds, and also like they have a sword on their waist. Like, to me, I don't know, I guess it's plausible if they did cover up all the way, but the sheer mass of numbers, like you said, like it seemed like more than 50% of that crowd were musketeers. So that was a little ridiculous. One thing I did like, that I feel like the movie did a few times with the main three musketeers, was kind of those elements of surprise where they get to like the ship and it looks like they're on, and it's like, can we come aboard? And yes, you may. And he leans on the first pirate guy and he's dead, and then all the guys are dead and they're blended in with the dead pirates to kind of pop out and fight. And then at the end of the movie, when Charlie Sheen is on the boat as one of his guards, and there was a few other times in the movie where like there's kind of this element of surprise, and I like that. It kept the movie fun and exciting, where you're like, okay, you know what's going to happen. The good guys are going to prevail. The three musketeers are going to save the king and the queen.
Is crazy, especially with what, like we talked about, the level of talent in this movie. But then it only made like 54 million at the box office. So I do think there are a lot of people who have not seen this movie. And it's surprising because it was a huge cast. It was a great, it's a famous IP. I mean, the Three Musketeers. I'm surprised Disney never tried to do anything else with this IP, because I assume that it's just, kind of a public domain thing, maybe.
Well, isn't it, wasn't there another, because when I went to go look it up, I saw there was 2 Three Musketeer movies, and this was the first of 2.
It may have been a Fox
not
one.
Besides like the Mickey Minnie one, like in Donald. I think there was like a one that came after, like 2011 version of this movie. But just to respond to what you just said, and this is something I thought is, and I wasn't sure what it made or what it cost, but I thought this movie kind of fell between 2 like age groups or 2 genres, or couldn't figure out what it wanted. Like, it wasn't a movie meant for kids, but I feel like they could have made it darker for adults. Like, when getting the PG rating, I'm sure it was a good thing, but I'm sure it scared some of that adult crowd away. Like, oh, this is probably a Disney telling of a cool Three Musketeer story. We'll skip it and we'll go watch whatever was big at the time, Terminator, whatever. And then when people, like, kind of, I'm sure, watch the previews and talk to other families and parents, like, oh, it's PG, should I take the kids? They'd be like, well, there's, sword fighting, there's some battles, and then there's a little bit of sensuality and the bathtub scene and a lot of cleavage. Like, it probably would have scared, like, people like my mother away from letting me watch it. So I feel like it kind of doesn't fall into this family-friendly movie, or is it a teenage or adult movie? Like, it just... And again, like, if I'm a parent, do I let my, would I let my 6 or 7-year-old watch it? I don't know. I'm not a parent, but I mean, it just, to me, I enjoyed it now as an adult, and I enjoyed it knowing it was an older movie.
I agree. One of the things I like about this one and some of the other movies we've reviewed on Deep in the Plus, like Tall Tale, is that they are movies that most people overlooked that were good movies, good, and ironically, Oliver Platt is also in Tall Tale. They were good movies, and that they were good family movies that, you know, you could sit down and watch together, and they were action movies, and they weren't, you know, all silly. It wasn't like The Shaggy Dog. It was something that was a little bit more, you know, kind of for everybody. So I really think that there probably needs to be more of that, and I do think that the Disney name put on those kind of probably scares some people away.
Just about to bring that up is I think having a different label over the front of it, and I feel like Disney's doing that again now with Fox and Fox Searchlight and having those Fox properties. Is that okay? If it's a family movie, we're slapping Disney on it. I thought it was the right amount of time. It was just another note I had down. Like I'm happy they didn't draw it out more, and I'm glad they kept some of those little scenes in there that we probably didn't need. But like I enjoyed those little comedic moments. I enjoyed some of the scenes. I mean, that first opening sequence, too, with that horse chase, was a long scene. Like, he gets chased for a long time, and he goes through barns and through these small pathways and large pathways and through a village, and then he hops over a tree, and he's not, you know, it's just, he swings over the post. Like, that was a cool, long action scene to start a movie. Yeah, I was happy. Lauren thought it was a little cheesy, but again, like, I don't know, I was watching it from 1993, excited to meet Pete, like, again, I think I was 9 this release. Not 9-year-old me, but I think like 14-year-old me or 13-year-old me would have really liked this and thought like the sword fighting and the action adventure. Maybe the 9-year-old me too, but I probably would have missed some of the jokes that have gone over my head.
You talked about your excitement and watching it through like 1993 Pete eyes. So now tell me, Pete Carney, would you recommend this movie? Would you put your name on this and say, go watch this?
For sure. This has everything that I enjoy still to this day. I like action. I like adventure. I like old storytelling. I loved the costuming. I loved like I said, some of those fun quotes and those little scenes. You know, like the how to kiss a girl and I'll teach you how to drink like a man. And also, I just love the little comedic quips. I think Oliver Platt was kind of the glue that kept this together. Like, he just had great moments and these little quips where you smiled and you're like, great character development by him. Even there was a scene, and we didn't talk about this, but I think that he either like cut to camera or winked or smirked, but like he just had a great character. He was fun. And then you had the always serious Kiefer Sutherland and baby Chris O'Donnell. And then of course we already talked about a brilliant job Tim Curry did.
I would recommend this because I think most people haven't seen it. Most people will have that like first experience with it. Even if you've already seen it, I think it's worth going back and having a second look at it. But it is Disney, so it is something the whole family can watch. It is fun. It is not kiddie, so it's something that, you know, adults can watch on their own, even if your significant other is calling it cheesy along the way. But if you feel differently and you're watching this now, and we'd love to hear your comments, you can comment below and tell us what's going on, or hit us up at Deep in the Plus on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. And Pete, I appreciate you sitting through this movie with me and getting hyped up about it.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for letting me on.
All right, Pete, so you know how this works. You also got to give me a pick of the week. Looking through Disney Plus, what movie are you wanting to recommend as your pick of the week?
So I had one that immediately popped into my head, and I was nervous because I know on our other platforms we did a watch along of this movie. I have been asking everyone to watch it forever, but it made up a huge part of my childhood, and that would be Feel the Rhythm, Feel the Rhyme, Get On Up, It's Bobsled Time, Cool Runnings. It just was my childhood. I quote that movie. I have probably, for a guy who's never seen movies, I probably have seen that movie over 50 times. If it's on TV, I would just have to let it go on. I can quote most of it. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen Cool Runnings, what's really cool, it's a perfect movie for the entire family. It's based on a true story. It obviously is like the Disney version of that story if you were to actually follow along, but it's from the Jamaican bobsled team going to the Calgary Winter Olympics, and the trials and tribulations and the funny quips. And there's so much cool fun facts about it as I grew older to figure it out, but I don't want to give too much away. But if you haven't seen Cool Runnings, watch it, grab some friends, grab your family. It's such a good movie.
So for me, it's not, my pick of the week is not going to be as deep as that. It is the Simpsons short that ran in front of Onward, which is Maggie Simpson in Playdate with Destiny. I'm a Simpsons fan from back in the day. I haven't been as big a fan anymore because there are a lot of edgier shows that I watch now, like Family Guy or Rick and Morty. But I still have a special place in my heart for The Simpsons. And so when Disney bought The Simpsons with the Fox deal, I was kind of excited that they were coming into the Disney fray. And it was very surprising to me. I didn't really know until we talked about it on the network just before it happened that this was going to open in front of Onward. And it's very strange because it always used to be a Pixar short, and here is a Simpsons short in front of a Pixar movie. So it was kind of cool to see it in the theater on the big screen. It's interesting to me that they don't talk in this. So, you know, one of the things that's very famous about The Simpsons is Hank Azaria or Dan Castellaneta and the voices that they give to these characters, and there were no character voices in this. You had Marge, you had Homer, you had Maggie, and there was a toy that she had called Phonic Frog, and she hits this button and it goes, why? That's the only voiceover there is in this entire thing. So they told the whole story the way that Pixar shorts are usually told, which is just, you know, through the animation. So I also thought it was interesting that when she takes her pacifier out, she basically looks like Lisa Simpson. Like if she didn't have her pacifier in, she basically looks exactly like Lisa. So she didn't have it in for much of the time in this one, and it that just kind of struck me that way. But it's a very cute story. It's very short. I think if you are, you just finished a movie and you want to, just watch something else, it's a neat thing to add on to, or if you want to pretend like you're in the movie theater and you play it before you watch Onward, that would be something else cool to do too. So that's my pick of the week, The Simpsons short, Playdate with Destiny. And we talked about this on Deep in the Plus Live, that I don't think that they take enough credit for the Fox content that they just spent $74 billion to buy. Yeah. There's a lot of it that they still haven't released on, either Hulu or on Disney Plus. So I think that we're going to see a lot more from this catalog, but I think it was a nice little touch to add this to a Pixar piece and maybe even introduce a whole new generation to The Simpsons. I don't know. I'm not sure that there are a lot of young kids who are watching The Simpsons, but I think with Disney Plus and with Disney integrating that into what they do, we could see a whole new generation of people who like The Simpsons. So thanks again for being here, Pete. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Have a good one.
If you like what you're watching, make sure you like and subscribe. You can also find us on social at Deep in the Plus on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you're a Disney Parks fan, don't forget to catch me and Rob on Park Center Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. on WDWNT.com.